In 1979, a revolution in Iran transformed the country in ways that shocked the world. The monarchy, led by the Shah, was overthrown, and in its place, Iran became a theocracy. But how did this happen? How did a nation, once ruled by kings and emperors, end up being governed by religious leaders? Here's a fact many don't know: 98% of Iranians voted to create an Islamic Republic after the Shah was gone. But the story behind that vote is full of surprises. It wasn't just about religion, it was a mix of social unrest, political power struggles, and deep anger over the Shah's rule. Khomeini, a religious leader who had been exiled for years, came back to lead this new era. He united people under a powerful vision that reshaped Iran's future forever. In this video, we'll explore the rise of the theocratic state in Iran, how Khomeini turned a religious idea into political power, and what happened to the country, and the world, after the revolution. The journey from empire to theocracy is filled with shocking facts, unexpected twists, and a whole new way of looking at power. Stick around to find out how Iran became a theocracy and why it matters to all of us today. Chapter 1: From Empire to Revolution, the Seeds of Change. Iran, once known as Persia, has a long history of rich culture and powerful empires. But by the early 20th century, the world had changed, and Iran's old imperial system was no longer sustainable. The early 1900s saw growing dissatisfaction with the ruling Qajar dynasty, especially with its inability to modernize the country. Iran was caught in the crossfire between global superpowers, Russia and Britain, and it left the country weak and divided. In the 1920s, Reza Shah Pahlavi took control and modernized the country, but it came at a cost. His authoritarian rule alienated both religious leaders and many citizens. By the 1940s, his son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, took over, but the resentment of the monarchy only deepened. Iran was ripe for change, and the seeds of revolution were already planted. Many wanted an Iran that wasn't just about foreign interests but about its own people and values. Iran's future was no longer tied to just empire or monarchy, it was looking for a new direction. Chapter 2: The Shah's Downfall, Power Struggles and Rising Tensions. The Shah's modernization efforts were meant to push Iran forward, but they ended up alienating key groups. His White Revolution in the 1960s pushed land reforms and gave women the vote, but it also undermined traditional structures. Religious leaders saw the secularization of the country as a direct attack on their influence. The Shah's lavish lifestyle, while many Iranians lived in poverty, fueled public anger. By the 1970s, Iran was becoming more politically unstable. In 1978, protests erupted across the country. Workers, students, and religious leaders joined forces. One of the key strategies that the Shah used was repression, but it backfired. Martial law only intensified the protests, and his army was no longer able to control the crowds. Interestingly, the Shah's government was so out of touch that it even used foreign newspapers to spread propaganda, which only angered Iranians more. In the end, the Shah fled the country in January 1979, leaving behind a vacuum of power. Chapter 3: Ayatollah Khomeini, the cleric who changed history. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was exiled in 1964 for speaking against the Shah, but this didn't stop him from becoming the face of the revolution. While the Shah's government tried to silence Khomeini's voice, the Ayatollah's messages only grew stronger, thanks in part to smuggled tapes and letters. Khomeini's strategy was brilliant. He framed the revolution as a moral struggle to protect Islam from a corrupt and westernized regime. His call for an Islamic government, where Shia Islam would guide all aspects of life, resonated with many. The revolution was not just political, it was deeply spiritual. When Khomeini returned to Iran in February 1979, over 3 million people greeted him at the airport, a clear sign of his popularity. His return was the final nail in the coffin for the Shah's regime. In fact, Khomeini's influence was so strong that even many secular activists who once opposed him began to support his cause, hoping for a better Iran. His charisma and ability to unite people under the banner of Islam gave him the upper hand. If you're finding this story fascinating, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more amazing insights into Iran's dramatic transformation. Chapter 4: Islamic Revolution, a shift from secular to sacred. At the start, Iran's revolution had wide support from both secularists and religious groups. However, once Khomeini took control, the revolution shifted from a fight for democracy to a fight for an Islamic government. This transition was not smooth. Secular factions were sidelined, and religious leaders took charge. Khomeini's key strategy was to appeal to the public's desire for justice and a return to traditional Islamic values. He argued that only an Islamic government could provide fairness and remove corruption. The intellectuals who initially backed the revolution found themselves on the outside looking in. Khomeini's supporters took advantage of this disunity to seize power. In March 1979, a referendum was held, and 98% of Iranians voted for the establishment of an Islamic Republic. This overwhelming vote showed that the majority had embraced Khomeini's vision. This shift from secularism to a religious state shocked many in the West. But Khomeini was clear: the revolution was not just about removing the Shah, it was about creating an Islamic society. Chapter 5: The Birth of the Islamic Republic, New Rules, New Order. Once Khomeini secured power, he wasted no time in reshaping Iran's political landscape. The new government was built around the concept of velayat-e-faqih, the rule of the Islamic jurist. This gave Khomeini and other religious leaders absolute power. He established a new constitution that combined Islamic law with democratic principles, but with significant control in the hands of religious leaders. Political parties were banned, and opposition was suppressed. The revolutionary government also took control of key sectors like oil, which had been dominated by foreign companies. One of Khomeini's first moves was to purge the military and government of those loyal to the Shah. In a landmark move, Iran became the first country to establish a theocratic state where the highest authority was a religious figure, not a monarch or president. This move didn't come without resistance, but Khomeini had managed to create a powerful alliance of religious and military groups that would ensure his rule. In the end, Khomeini and his followers transformed Iran from a monarchy into a theocratic republic, shifting the balance of power from secular elites to the religious clergy. Chapter 6: A Legacy of Theocracy, The Impact on Iran and the World. The legacy of Iran's shift to a theocracy is complex. Internally, Iran became more conservative and isolated from the West. Theocratic rule imposed strict religious codes, including the mandatory veil for women and the suppression of political freedoms. In the first decade of the Islamic Republic, Iran fought a brutal war with Iraq, which further cemented the power of the regime. Yet, despite these challenges, Iran's theocratic system survived and even thrived in some ways. Iran became a model for political Islam, inspiring movements in other parts of the Middle East. However, Iran's theocracy has also faced significant criticism for human rights abuses, censorship, and its rigid control over society. Many of Khomeini's promises, such as social justice and economic equality, have not materialized as expected. But perhaps the most significant impact of Iran's theocracy is its influence on global politics. Iran has used its religious authority to project power across the region, supporting groups and governments that align with its interests. It also became a focal point for tensions between the West and the Muslim world. In the end, Iran's shift from monarchy to theocracy marked a turning point not just in the country's history but in the history of the Middle East, reshaping the region for decades to come. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Iran's dramatic transformation, don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more historical insights and fascinating stories.